Good evening. Welcome in to another edition of the PowerMizzou.com podcast, State of the Tigers, here live on YouTube. If you're joining us live, we certainly appreciate that. Like, subscribe, comment, do all those things. We will get to your questions and comments in the chat as the show goes along. It is the time of year where we kind of have to move this around. We can't be on a regular night because there's basketball games every night of the week pretty much. So we are on Tuesday night tonight. Appreciate you guys joining us. If you're listening on the podcast, that will go up after the show is over. Want to remind you, as we do at the start of this show every single week, to get in touch with our friend James Carlton at State Farm Insurance in Webster Groves, Missouri. If you live in the state of Missouri or the state of Illinois, James can take care of you, give you the best rates you can find on your insurance, talk a little Mizzou football and basketball with you. You can check them out at carltoninsurance.net. Give them a call at 314-961-4800. That is 314-961-4800. Tell them you heard about them on Power Mizzou, and James is going to make a $25 donation to the name, image, and likeness efforts at the University of Missouri, just for calling him and getting a quote and telling him you heard about it here on Power Mizzou. So we're going to got a little double dip tonight. We're going to start football. We're going to start with Gerard Hamilton because it is football season. So football is always first. And I gave Gerard the option if he wanted to go first or second, and he chose first because nobody wants to follow Drew King, man. So excellent choice.
That's a good one. I put it like this. I won the coin toss and I decided to receive so I could put the pressure on him.
You got to put the offense on the field first. I like it, especially when there is no second half, so you don't have to worry about getting the ball to start the third quarter. All right, so look, we're not going to waste a bunch of time here. We'll get right into things, and we'll get to your guys' questions. And I like this is a perfect place to start. Jason says Saturday night wasn't a fever dream, right? I mean, at what? I guess the Jamal Roberts fumble, we all just thought, well, this is pretty much done, right?
Yeah, I was saying, dang, that's a crazy way for your season to end, to fumble right there on the chance where you had a 2-minute drive lined up and the offense was rolling. And you would think if there was going to be a turnover, honestly, even though to that point Pine was starting to show, what he was doing, you would think it would have been an interception if something like that was going to happen, not a fumble when they've been running the ball as much. And Roberts, to that point, I looked, really good.
Yeah, fumble didn't really cross my mind. I mean, there was still 2 minutes left when Missouri scores. So, you're thinking, I don't know, the offenses look better. Maybe they can drive down. But we were more talking, hey, are you going to go, if you manage to score, are you going for 2? Then they get in 3rd and 17 and you're not feeling great about things, and he just throws this. I mean, that throw to Luther, it was, I don't know what was better, the throw or the catch, to get him in range. And then with Theo, I got to go, the catch was better.
The catch was, of course, better. And to be honest, until like a couple hours ago, I didn't see the video for the catch or how he got the foot down. That was crazy because the way it looked like he catches it out of bounds, does some type of pivot, and then lands
goes back in. Yeah,
but I do think the pass was pretty incredible. It's more so probably the guts of throwing that type of pass in that situation. And to be honest, I feel like they should do that a little bit more. I don't really feel like we see those type of plays, but I understand why when you got Brady and you got Lou and the running backs who can just get in from a couple yards out, you don't really need to, but I'd like to see them do that a little bit more.
So they score and tie it. And I mean, we're all thinking you're not thinking about winning the game at that point, right? I mean, you're just thinking best case scenario, you're going to overtime, and you got to feel pretty good about overtime at that point.
Yeah, I mean, you're at home and the crowd's in it. The offense has shown something, and the overtime, obviously, it's 25 yards. Like that's much more manageable, to do.
Right. Yeah. I mean, even Oklahoma probably could have gone 25 yards, but I mean, Jackson Arnold, somebody's like, I don't know how many times you've gone back and watched that video, but that wasn't really a forced fumble.
I think about that every
Tristan Newsom didn't hit the ball. He just dropped it.
Yeah, he just kind of tackled him. And I don't know. I wonder if he didn't see Newsom, because in that video, I believe it's Zion Young and can't forget the other. I'm forgetting the other name. But they kind of forced him to move up, and his eyes are downfield. And then by the time he sees Newsom, he's already on the ground and the ball's already gone. So I wonder if Newsom coming up kind of like surprised him or something.
Yeah, I mean, just wild play. I mean, we've seen some. There's some crazy endings. Like that's not the wildest way I've seen a football game end, but that's the first time I can remember 28 points in less than 3 minutes in a game I've been at.
Yeah, I wrote in my column. When do you ever see two scooping scores in the same game, let alone 90 seconds apart from each other? You know?
Right. Just back to back. And the Oklahoma one was like that was just fluid, and the guy that picked it up was pretty fast. The Zion Young one was in like slow motion. Because first of all, he's just making sure he gets the ball. Second of all, he's only 15, 20 yards from the end zone, and the only guy chasing him at that point was an offensive tackle.
Yeah, I think who was it? It was maybe Corey Flagg who said it took him a minute to pick it up or whatever.
Yeah,
And
well, Theo said he was running in slow motion.
yeah, well, okay. He said that Corey Flagg said something earlier today about Zion taking a minute. I think he said he's gonna have to talk to him about it. But everybody was happy he did the Bolton drill, something y'all probably heard 37,000 times since that Super Bowl. How he executed it well. So
yeah, well, Connor, I'm sorry you gave your tickets away to that game. Hopefully our 8.5 minute or 6.5 minute recap has done it justice. Hopefully you checked it out. All right, like I said, we got a lot of stuff to get to, and we want to get to your guys' questions and comments. The college football playoff rankings are coming out somewhere about 7:30, so about 25 minutes. They come out at the end of the Kansas-Michigan State basketball game, which is currently tied with 8 minutes and 51 seconds left. So if that goes overtime, then obviously rankings coming out later. They're just kind of at the mercy of ESPN, like they are with everything else in college football season. Missouri was 24 last week. Do we think they move up? I mean, I think they'll move up. They have to move up a little bit, right?
maybe a spot or two. But to be honest, I don't know. I know teams like Iowa State and
Iowa State lost and Pitt lost, and they were 17 and 18.
That's what I was thinking. Now, I don't know exactly, besides those two, exactly who's around them to make them be able to move us. Because I want to know if did they just put someone else in or
Right. So right above Missouri is Clemson. I mean, they beat Virginia Tech. If Missouri wasn't ahead of them last week, I don't know why they'd be ahead of them this week. Louisville 6-3, but they were ahead of them last week. Washington State's now 8-1. You're not passing them. Colorado, you're not passing them because they won. Kansas State, I don't even think played last week, so you're not going to pass them. But then you've got Pittsburgh at 18 and Iowa State at 17. They were 7-1. They're both 7-2 like Missouri. Iowa State's lost 2 in a row. To me, those are the two teams Missouri jumps. Like, I think they go from 24 to 22.
Same pit. Yeah, that sounds about right.
What about LSU? What about LSU at 15, slipped to 6-3, got blown out by Bama? I can make an argument Missouri should pass them, but their other two losses were USC and Ole Miss.
I don't know if they're going to put them past LSU, to be honest.
I don't think they will. I think they kind of should because they both have a blowout loss to Alabama, right? Like 34-0, 42-13. There's no difference there. Right. The only difference is Missouri was on the road, LSU was at home. And then LSU has a loss to Ole Miss and a loss to USC versus Missouri's blowout against A&M. Like, if I'm doing the ranking, I think I would probably give Missouri an edge there.
Yes, I think we're in that weird conundrum though. Like we said all last week, how Alabama LSU was an eliminator game, and then once the game happens, though, you're still hearing everybody talk about, well, there's this convoluted way that a 3-win team can get in and the strength of schedule and all that good stuff. So I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not expecting Missouri to hop them, but I do think they should because, again, we think LSU's playoff hopes are dead, and technically Mizzou has some type of mathematical chance to make the title game and all that good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, LSU does have a win over Ole Miss, a win over South Carolina. So, like, they do have a couple good things on their resume. I'm not going to pitch I don't really care. Missouri 21, LSU 22, or the other way around. It doesn't really matter. The more interesting thing and again, like, we're not going to spend a bunch of time talking path to the college football playoff because I'm just going to be honest, guys, it's almost non-existent. The interesting thing to me is the SEC, though. I mean, like, there is a path to an 8-way tie for the SEC title at 6. 8 teams can finish 6-2, and it's really not even that crazy.
Yeah, it's bananas. I sent you that Reddit thing I seen of people. I don't know. They got this machine based on who
Like
wins.
running scenarios, yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't even get away from Missouri. I'm not gonna act like I was on it that long, but I was just like, what happens if Missouri wins? Tennessee loses somewhere, something like that. And it's still hard to get them like above 5 for me. So, but I do know I've seen other people on Twitter put, this happens, this happens, this happens. They can be in the title game. So it is crazy. And I wonder what the CFP is going to do if you have, like 4, 10-2 teams or whatever the number would be in addition to your conference champion. Like, they're getting into a territory where they thought, oh, when we go from 4 to 12 teams, it's going to be easy. No, you just brought more voices, more problems.
Well, this is the exact scenario we talked about before the season. What if you're 10-2 and you play in the SEC title game and lose it? Like,
well,
the team that loses that game, I bet, like, there could easily be 5 or 6 10-2 teams in the SEC. If you lose that title game, dude, I'm not sure you're getting in.
Well, I've heard people say
it depends who it is, but
that's what I was about to say. Like, if it's Alabama and they go in 10-3, they're gonna make it. Like, I can't see
lost to Vandy.
Well, if Vandy becomes an 8-win team, I mean,
right. I mean, it's not a horrible loss, but if you've got 3 losses and one of them's a borderline top 25 team,
Gabe, I get your logic. They're not gonna take the SEC runner up and say no, like, not Alabama per se. Now, the reason I'm saying this, let's say it was Missouri. However, I do think Missouri would get it. Like, that they would be like, that's done. So,
like, what if it's 10-2 Ole Miss and Ole Miss loses the title game? Or 10-2 Tennessee and Tennessee loses the title game?
What is Tennessee? Well, would that mean did Tennessee beat Georgia on the way?
No, if they're 10-2, they probably didn't. But
they
already beat Alabama. I mean, the point is, my point is, if you have 4 or 5 teams at 10-2, and one of them falls to 10-3, while 3 of them don't play, dude, I wouldn't feel good about being that team that lost the title game.
Yeah, title games are so funny. It's what do title games feel? They're fun, but I don't want to call them like the all-star game, like a Pro Bowl, but it's just like, what's the point in some way? Like, there is a point, but there's.
But, like, especially this year, there's a point because now, like I've been saying all year long, I don't want to be in the SEC title game. And I agree. I still think that. I don't want to be in it in case you lose it. But if you win it, you're automatically in. Like, you don't got to worry about the rest of it. You're going to have a top 4 seed in the bye.
Well, I'm thinking more so, for the loser.
Right, for the loser. But suddenly that game has become probably more important than it's ever been.
Now, what if that loser is like, what if Texas is the loser? And they'd have, let's just say they went out and then they lose that game.
They don't have much. Like, the best thing Texas has done is Michigan and Oklahoma, which, like, people think sounds good, but both those teams suck.
They do, but do you think they'd be left out? You basically went, what is
if
that?
If they lose to A&M and lose the title game, yes.
No. I didn't say A&M. I said if you went out and you lose.
Oh, no. You go 11-1. You go into the title game 11-1. You're set. You're fine. It doesn't matter.
You don't got A&M on their schedule. Okay, is that this week?
But I'm talking about if you go in 10-2, and there's 4 other 10-2 teams, you're not going to feel very good about things.
Correct.
And like I said, if that happens, if the SEC title game loser gets left out of the playoff, Greg Sankey is destroying the playoff the next day. He's just going to rip up the whole thing and it's all going to be different. So I want to run through real quick the scenario in which we can get 8 teams that are 6-2 in the SEC. So there's really not all that many upsets involved in it. LSU has to win out. They've got Florida, Vandy, and Oklahoma. Like, they're going to be favored to win out. Missouri has to win out. They have South Carolina, Mississippi State, Arkansas. Obviously, the South Carolina game would be an upset. In fact, that's the biggest upset that's required to get an 8-way tie at 6-2. So then Alabama, they have to win out. They've got Oklahoma and Auburn. I mean, they realistically should win out. Ole Miss, they have to win out. They've got Florida and Mississippi State. They should win out. They're going to be favored to win out. Let's see. Now we've got Georgia. Their only SEC game left is Tennessee. So if they win that, they're 6-2. It knocks Tennessee down to 5-2. Tennessee only has Vanderbilt left. Tennessee beats Vanderbilt. They're 6-2. Texas has Arkansas, Kentucky, and A&M. And then Texas A&M has Auburn and Texas left. So basically, the only upsets involved here, Missouri has to beat South Carolina, and then either Texas or Texas A&M has to lose a game before they play each other, and then the one that lost a game has to beat the other one. So, like, A&M has to lose to Auburn and beat Texas, or Texas has to lose to Arkansas and beat A&M. Like, dude, that's what I'm rooting for now. Like, that's what I'm rooting for, because I have absolutely no idea who would play in the SEC title game.
Love chaos. That's all it is. Just loving chaos.
I mean, you would have an SEC title game spot basically coming down to, like, what Vanderbilt's record was against somebody. And maybe a playoff spot decided by that. Like, that's how stupid this system really kind of is. We got to go back to divisions, man. Like, why did we get rid of divisions?
I don't know. In a way, though, I'm not going to lie. I kind of like it being so spread out and not having the same exact opponents as usual. I mean, particularly in the SEC East. I feel like the SEC West is a little bit better.
But, like, it makes sense if you're playing an NBA season and it's 81 games long, or a Major League Baseball season, however many games long. Even the NFL is 17 games long. You got 16 teams playing an 8-game schedule. Of course you're going to have a bunch of them with the same record. Like, you got to have some way to figure it out beyond what did you do against the 9th place team on Tuesday in October.
Okay, so you were paying attention to this. You were covering this when I was a kid. How did you like the BCS compared to the CFP? Would you go that far back and want to go to that?
No, none of it's ever been good, because the truth is college football can't do it right because they can't get balanced schedules. At the end, no matter what system we've ever had, you're always just asking somebody to put this team against that team, even though they played none of the same games. So I get that, but I'm just talking about when you're in a conference, it doesn't have to be that way. You're in the same conference. All you got to do is split it into 2 8-team divisions. You play all the other teams in your division, play 2 teams in the other division, and then there's like an actual way to break a tie. This doesn't make any sense to have 16 teams that none of them have the same schedule, and you're picking the top 2.
I don't disagree with you there. Yeah. But again, we on the side love the chaos. So, I mean, I'm going to be
it's fun. I love it. I mean, and look, here's the funny thing. If all those teams finish 6-2, you know what they're all going to do? Every single one of them is going to hang a banner or something at their stadium that says 2024 SEC regular season champion.
I've never been a fan of regular season champions versus conference. If you win the conference title, that makes you the champion. Do not say I'm not a fan of that.
Well, what I was not a fan of, and like Missouri fans laughed at Kansas for doing it, but then Missouri did it the very next year. So, like, there's a tie for the division championship, right? Like, if we still have divisions, these teams finish 6-2 and they tie. Well, somebody's going to the SEC title game because they won a tiebreaker. But the team that didn't win the tiebreaker still got to say they were SEC East champs or Big 12 North. You weren't, man. You lost the tiebreaker. You did not win that division. You should absolutely be
When did
ashamed
Missouri
if you
do
hang
that?
a banner for that.
They did that knowing they didn't actually win the division?
Yeah, Missouri. So Kansas did it in 2007 when they played that big game. They finished tied at the top of the Big 12 North, but Missouri won the game. So Missouri went to the title game and Kansas claimed, Big 12 North co-champions or whatever. And then I want to say it was 2010 when Missouri did it. Could have been 2009. I don't know. But they tied Nebraska. Nebraska went to the title game, but Missouri was, said they were 2010 Big 12 North champs, which was
That's disgusting.
They weren't. I hate it.
Disgusting.
Yeah, I hate it. All right, so let's run through this real quick in the SEC. Just let's go through what you think happens. Tennessee. All right, Tennessee, Georgia. At Georgia, who's winning that game?
Oh, it's at Georgia. I was definitely going to say Tennessee, but you know what? I'll still take Tennessee, and the reason is I know it's a little bit on a limb, but Carson Beck he's not been good this year. In the last few games, I just wrote about it yesterday. He has like 5 to 9 touchdown to interception ratio. He's been getting bailed out. They won 2 games when he threw 3 interceptions. He's been getting bailed out by the team. I don't know how great the run offense has been compared to how it's usually how we've been accustomed to Georgia football running. So I'm gonna say Tennessee, even though on the road that's tough. That's
okay. I just can't see Georgia in a game it absolutely has to win at home losing the game. But so if you've got Tennessee, then I assume you're going to say Tennessee beats Vanderbilt in 2 weeks. And Tennessee finished 11-1.
Hold on, I see someone. August Meyer says Nico may be out. If Nico, I'm just calling him Nico I. If he's out, then I'm going to Georgia. I didn't know he's got some type of situation for him.
Yeah, I know there's a question.
Okay, I didn't know that part.
So I mean, if Tennessee beats Georgia, then all they got to do is beat Vandy. They're going to be 7-1. They're going to be in the SEC title game. A&M, A&M's only SEC game before Texas is Auburn. They going to beat Auburn?
I think they'll beat. Yeah, they'll beat Auburn.
I think they will.
But
I'm not 100% sure.
What is A&M getting all this credit for? I mean Auburn. What is Auburn getting all this credit?
Oh, nothing. No, this isn't about Auburn being any good. This is about the games at Auburn. A&M has to win it.
Oh,
Auburn. Also, I just don't trust A&M. Like I've never trusted A&M.
Well, that's what I was going to say. When they face Texas, if you have 2 quarterbacks, you don't have one. That's it's when it gets down to the crunch. I'm like, it's cool winning all these games in the regular season or whatever. And again, Missouri made Connor Wigman look like the best quarterback ever. And I told y'all, okay, it's a bit dramatic.
Right. And then somebody made Marcel Reed look like the best quarterback ever.
Exactly. And then he got brought back down to earth at South Carolina. And now they, again, do not have a quarterback for real. So when you start playing those teams in the end, when things are on the line, that's a little bit shaky.
All right. So instead of going through every team, let's just not looking at the schedule, not knowing what the hell's going on. Tell me who plays in the SEC title game. Everybody's basically got 2 games left. Who do you think's playing in the SEC title game? And understand, we don't know what the hell the tiebreakers are, guys. We're just taking a shot here.
Texas and Ole Miss is popping in my mind, but again, I don't know what's left on their schedule.
I mean, all they've got left is Florida and Mississippi State. I think Ole Miss is going to be to 6-2. I kind of like that. I kind of like Texas Ole Miss in the SEC title game.
Okay, great. I'm not great at these things because usually somebody's just like, "Well, you forgot," and I'm like, "Oh, yeah."
And again, I don't know. Ole Miss might lose a tiebreaker to Georgia or Alabama. I don't know, but I kind of like Texas Ole Miss.
That would be a fun game to watch. I just put it like that at the least.
Yeah. So we have 2 reports here. Heupel after the game said Nico was fine. Nico is not expected to play with a concussion. So either he's not playing or he's playing. We don't know which one of those.
Oh man, just the way of life right there. Yes or no?
All right. So let's run through run through some of these questions before we get you out. I don't think we're going to be able to do the college football playoff rankings while you're still here. There's still 3.5 minutes left in the Kansas game. So we'll probably switch gears and let you go and get a story out on that. And have Drew on, but how similar are Oklahoma and South Carolina defensively? Have you looked much yet at kind of what South Carolina does?
Great defense. They're
great front seven.
That front seven is crazy. Drink said something earlier that he talked to an SEC, or not an SEC scout, an NFL scout a couple weeks ago when they told him South Carolina has the most defensive NFL talent of any team in the league. So they've got guys everywhere. I got the stats right here. 12th in total defense, 14th in run defense, 3rd in sacks per game, 3rd in total sacks, 10th in tackles for loss per game, and 13 in total tackles for loss with 69. So they get after it. They're good at stopping the run. They're good at getting pressure on quarterbacks. That front seven is just mean. And then in the back, in the secondary, I mean, I asked a question about hope I pronounced his name right. Safety Nick Emawari. He has
you can say literally anything, I'll believe you.
He has 4 interceptions and 2 returned for a touchdown. We actually had a funny moment when I told Drink that. He was just like, "Is that this year?" And he made me think, like, am I reading right sites? It is from this year. So 4 interceptions, 2 returned for touchdowns. And I was basically like, how do you game plan around defensive back where you kind of got to respect that he'll take the ball away, but you can't let him punk you and get you out of what you want to do, especially with a backup quarterback. And he just said basically him, Kirby, and Brady will talk with Drew Pine and stuff because they've played this guy last 3 seasons or so. So they'll just see what his tendencies are. But like they've got NFL guys at every level of the defense. So that stuff they did in the first half versus OU, it's not going to cut it.
I think the biggest difference, like OU, I feel like OU's a solid defense. Like their best player is probably Danny Stutzman, the linebacker.
Yeah.
But I don't think they had the front four. South Carolina. I don't think anybody in this league. I think South Carolina has best front four in the league, except maybe Tennessee.
The only thing I can remember about like Oklahoma has a solid defense. Their defense is pretty good. I know they were going into last week's game. I think they were 9th in sacks. They were top 20 in run defense, and they played the run well last week. But it's hard to really grade Oklahoma and their defense because they're on the field all the time. Like their offense isn't good, and even worse, their offense turns the ball over, so they're on the field all the time. So it's hard to judge. But South Carolina is I would think it's much better because they have an offense that isn't great, but they can put up points and they can kind of wear you down and get their defensive break.
Well, and I think we could really find out in this game, like, did Missouri actually find something in the second half against Oklahoma, right? Like Drink said, hey, the first half, we were just setting it up. We knew it was going to – I don't know if I believe him or not, whatever. That's fine. That's what you say after you win. But, like, if they actually found something in the second half of that game, we have to see it this week. Now, to be fair, if they found something in the second half of week 9, I'm curious why it took until the second half of week 9 to find it, but whatever. If they found it, you better show it against South Carolina.
Here's the problem with how the Oklahoma game went versus how you can take that second half and bring it to South Carolina. The Oklahoma game felt like the first half was just peppering them with the jab. So you just keep running and running and running and running. And then in the second half, you throw some combinations and you land a big punch at the end. The reason you have to set up your big punch is because people are going to see that wild swing coming. You can't really do that versus South Carolina. They're too good on defense for you to just go in there and probably start that way. So that's probably why they had to, even against Oklahoma, set it up. They have to run the ball. They have to do a little bit of that, but they can't have an 11 to 22 pass rush ratio a pass to run ratio like they did in the first half versus OU. They're going to have to do a little bit more of the second half, which is 16 to 24, and find a sweet spot of, what they can do.
The other thing about that second half, I mean, let's be honest. Missouri only had 16 points before the drive at 2 minutes, and they cut it loose there because there's no other choice. You can't get down the field running and throwing short stuff into. I mean, they had to. And it worked. I credit them. Hit the slant to Theo, hit the long one to Luther. Like, it worked. You can't take that away. But they didn't really do it until they had no other choice. So I'll be interested to see how they attack. Cam saying multiple videos show no wrap or brace on Cook's hand or wrist, acting relatively normal. Why does everything have to be a big secret? So I want to say, first of all, like, we don't technically know what's wrong with Brady. Nobody's ever said out loud, and nobody's probably gonna say out loud. I'll be honest, guys. I've heard like 4 different things, and I'm not gonna say it because I don't know which one is right. So as for why it has to be a secret, it's real simple. Coaches aren't going to tell you anything they don't have to tell you. And college coaches don't have to tell you. NFL coaches have to tell you because the media is out there at practice every single day, and they are every week, and they can see if a guy's practicing or if a guy has a brace on his wrist. Like, you're going to laugh at this, but I don't think it's impossible that Brady Cook wears something on his wrist all week and then he took it off on game night when he was going to be in front of 60,000 people. Like, that's the kind of stuff that happens in college football.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I seen him wearing like some type of hoodie or whatever. You don't, and it's not like he's doing anything. He's standing on the sideline. So yeah, he can probably live for 3 hours on the sidelines, walking around, putting his
right.
hands.
Hey, Brady, don't be dumb. Don't go bang your thumb on a helmet or something.
Yeah. So yeah, we don't know. And again, we haven't been allowed to practice in about 3 weeks now.
Right.
So it's not like when y'all saw him at the game, we saw him at the game.
And that's it. That's the only time we've seen him.
We're not going to see him in the hallways. There is no other time they'll let us see Brady or anybody that's injured for that matter. So I don't know.
I mean, in a lot of cases, you might hear you might see a tweet or something. Hey, some kid has a class with Brady Cook, but honestly, he's like a master's student. He probably does most of his stuff online. He probably doesn't even have to go walk around campus.
Yes. And on top of that, it has been some time since, he's had certain injuries, but that doesn't mean just because you got a brace or something off, it doesn't mean you're completely healed up either. Like
right.
you can have something removed and now you're in the next part of your rehab. So, I mean, we know he's progressing, but the way Drink answered the question earlier about, would he rather play Drew Pine if he's playing well or 80 or 85% Brady, to me, I took it as he kind of already knew Brady probably in his mind was not going to play this game. So it's just like we're preparing for Drew to start, but you never know. You never know.
Right. I mean, that's what Drink said today, right? He said we're preparing with Drew Pine as the starting quarterback, which if you take it at face value, that means Drew Pine's going to be the starting quarterback. Here's the last 3 weeks. They told us all week long he wasn't going to play at Alabama. We were pretty sure he was going to play at Alabama, and he did. They refused to tell us he was out against Oklahoma, even though we pretty much knew he was out against Oklahoma, and he was out against Oklahoma. I legitimately don't think they know for sure today.
Yeah, they probably don't.
So what do you do if Brady's, because look, he's not going to be 100%. But if Brady comes and says, I can go, what do? Do you start him?
Yeah, you do.
I don't think I would. Because here's why. Because Brady's going to tell me he can play. Like, I don't care what happens. Brady's going to say, I'm good. I can play.
Well, I'm thinking the 80 to 85% scenario. Not if he's barely cleared. I don't want no 70%. I'm thinking like kind of the numbers we were using. If he's 80 to 85%, I say you can.
See, if he's here's what I'm thinking. If he's 80%, Drew Pine showed me he can move the football last week and not throw the ball to the other team. I'm starting Drew Pine and I'm having Brady there if something goes wrong and I need hey man, this team needs to come out of the hospital moment. Let's go do this again. I would start Drew Pine unless the doctors tell me he's 100%. Like, I wouldn't even ask Brady. I would ask the doctors. I wouldn't ask Brady how he is because Brady's going to say I'm fine.
As they always should. The only problem about that is it's not that Brady's not a vet, but playing against this front seven cold, let's say he comes in after halftime, I don't know. I just feel like you can put Brady in, still implement the second half game plan you use versus OU. And if you want to just a couple times, pepper in a couple runs for Brady, or he scrambles, but you don't have to do what they usually do, which is let Brady kind of go wild with what he wants to run. You don't have to go back to that, but there are some things you can kind of open up your offense with having that chemistry back. It would also be big because they don't have Tollison no more. Like that would kind of help the
Didn't even
offense and
think about that.
the continuity and stuff like that. When you go from, he answered this earlier and basically said the offense needs to expect to have a couple of mistakes and be able to bounce back, or not expect a couple of mistakes, but when they happen, because you don't have your starting center and your starting quarterback, you got to be able to roll with the punches, basically. And if you bring Brady back, that's one less problem, to worry about.
Yeah, I see both sides of it. August says, what's worse, his hand or his ankle? It's the hand at this point. Like, he played with the ankle. The ankle wasn't what forced him out of the Alabama game. He's been off that ankle for 2.5 weeks now. Like, I'm not going to say the ankle's fine, but the ankle's not the issue. The hand/wrist is the issue, and we'll see how that goes. All right, so I don't know. We got to most of the questions. We covered most of what we wanted. Anything come out today or anything we missed other than you just mentioned Connor Tollison done for the year, and basically everything else injury wise, he said wait till tomorrow night, right? Wait till tomorrow night, and then I'll put out this injury report, and it doesn't mean anything anyway.
What I don't like about this availability report is it put the injuries on there, or at least put upper body, lower body. Yeah, I think it's stupid to just put names up there. But I guess it's not an injury report; it's availability report because you're so tempted to say out with undisclosed, and we don't know, which is incredibly stupid.
One last thing, and then we'll let you go and we'll talk to Drew. I know you talked to Nate Noel today.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm looking at Nate Noel the last 3 weeks going, they're just kind of picking and choosing spots with him. I don't think he's healthy. What's the or he's not healthy enough to be the number one back. He's healthy enough to give them a handful of plays.
Yeah, I asked Nate kind of about, how was he feeling on that foot, ankle, whatever. I think it was an ankle sprain. But how was he feeling on that? You said he was feeling all right, and he feels like he's just about 100% or something around there. It was much of nothing. But I asked, somebody asked Drink about playing with the running backs and how it's been going and stuff like that, and he still said it as if like they're still working Nate in, still trying to get him a little bit healthier, but I think they're in a good enough spot where they're comfortable giving Roberts the load. Obviously Marcus Carroll has started, so they don't have to feel the same pressure at running back as they are quarterback. And so, remember in the second half of the OU game where there was questions like, is Nate all right? And then he eventually showed up after a long period of not playing, and he had a couple snaps and he got a first down, I think, on that one of those final drives. So, it's a little bit at a time.
It's a fluid situation. All right, there's 17 seconds left in Michigan State, Kansas, so we'll let you go watch the playoff show. We'll just kind of briefly relay those rankings on here, but you'll have a story out and all that. So we'll let you run, man.
All right, tell Drew to follow that. No, I'm just playing.
All right, we'll see, man. All right, we bring in Drew King now.
Okay,
I gave Gerard the option. He took the ball first. He let you go second.
All right, Gerard wants me to follow that. That's what he said, right? Okay. How about that? Popper? How about that? Come on.
All right, it's huge. Big party with Drew King. We're gonna finish up talking Mizzou basketball here tonight. It is not exactly been a party this week, but they have won 2 games.
They did win 2 games. Their first 2 wins of 2024. So you can say that they did win some basketball games.
Look, man, I don't want to dismiss that because it had been 20 games. I don't care if it was Howard. I don't care if they only won by, 15 points, whatever it was. They just needed a game where they ended with more points than the other team.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, I needed that too. That's a lot of stories I had to write about losing games.
Yeah,
but
no question.
Yeah, I think that was helpful, undeniably, right? 20 games is a long time to go without a win. So I think that, and more importantly, those were games they were supposed to win. So they took care of business. They haven't had a Jackson State moment yet.
Right. They've gotten way closer than they should, though. Like, what the hell's going on in the second half? Because it's been all 3 games.
Yeah, it has been all 3 games. I struggled to figure it out what exactly it is. I think part of it is just, they don't necessarily ride with the hot hand yet. I mean, they had to last night because there was only one hot hand. But like the Memphis game, Trent Pierce is your leading scorer at halftime, and then he obviously doesn't come back in. And then, Howard starts hitting a bunch of threes. Like Treese says, like the rotations haven't been super consistent. And I know people are going to have questions about them. I don't have a lot of answers. But yeah, it's just been kind of inconsistent effort throughout the course of the game is the only thing I could pin it down to.
In 2 of the 3 games, to me, it's been the defense. I mean, the Memphis game, it was clearly the defense. They gave up 53 in the second half. You can understand that to some degree. Memphis figured out the zone. Memphis has good athletes. Last night, like, they played no defense for about the first 4 minutes. And then Dennis called timeout, and they seemed to figure things out, and they had about a 14-point lead. And then they just quit playing defense again. It was like they got up 14, and they're like, we're good. And all of a sudden, they were in would the lead get down to 2?
Got down to 2 twice. Yeah. And yes, the defense hasn't been awesome in spots, I'll say, right? Like overall, I think defensively they've been good, and that's kind of the side they've been better on.
They've been better. Have they been good, or have they just been better?
Right now they're top 100 in defensive efficiency rating. Okay. Granted, they're playing Howard and Eastern Washington. But yeah, like to me, overall, I feel like the offense has been the bigger issue. And specifically because, Gabe, I'm not sure this team can shoot. Like, you have Tamar Bates hitting all of your threes against Howard, and then you have Caleb Grill hitting all your threes against Eastern Washington. Like, those 2 can't be the only guys hitting 3-pointers night to night.
I mean, they can be if they both actually do it consistently and they're both doing it at the same time, but not if only one of them is.
Right. Like you're not going to get 8 for 10 from Caleb Grill every night. That's just not happening. And if you look at like the rest of the roster, Trent Pierce has 2 3-pointers. Nobody else on the team has more than 1.
All right, so let's talk about that. Reed wants to know, is Trent Pierce in the doghouse? Like, look, we have first of all, anybody could be in the doghouse. Like Isaiah Mosley never played, and Dennis talked about him like he was the greatest kid that ever walked the face of the earth. So I have no idea. But like, what did Dennis say? Because I know you asked him about it, or somebody asked him about it last night.
It was a bit of a word salad.
Shocking.
Yeah. My take from it was just that he wanted to play Jacob Cruz and Marcus Allen more.
And I don't mean to cut you off, but that's always the answer. Like anytime somebody says, why is this guy not playing? I don't know, because the coach wanted to play a different guy.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you might sometimes cover a coach that tells you, here's why I want to play the other guy. Usually Dennis is not going to tell us that.
Yeah. And like, by the way, he's got a lot of guys he needs to see. We're only 3 games into the year. Jacob Cruz hasn't played that much. Marcus Allen hasn't played that much. And like, by the way, Marcus Allen
hasn't played that much despite starting.
Honor has not played that much. So I think that Marcus Allen has looked really good, probably deserves a bump in minutes. Who are those minutes going to come from? We're still waiting to see, like, what can Marquez Warwick do? Like, there's a lot of guys he's got to get in there. So, like, Trent Pierce didn't play last night, but, Honor Boating might not play against Memphis, or Jacob Cruz might not play this next game. So it's just going to take some time for him to get through everybody, and it's not going to be consistent for sure.
here's what I find hilarious about this team and really about all of Dennis's teams. Like every single night, it's, oh my God, why is he playing so many guys? And I happen to agree with that. I support that. He plays too many guys. But then the first question we get after every single game is, why didn't this guy play?
Yeah.
Well, he's already playing more guys than you want. Why do you want him to play another guy? Like, there's only 200 minutes in a game, man. Hey, Freeway Jared says you're the best Drew since Locke. So that's
wow.
That's a solid 6-year. I don't know if there's been any Drews here since then, but if there have been, you're better than them.
High praise. I appreciate it, Freeway Jared.
Yeah, Jared, appreciate you being by here. Appreciate the super chat, man, as always. But no, you can't win because you play too many guys. But I want you to play that guy. I just don't want you to play this guy. And I mean, I get it. Like his substitution patterns are wild. But here's the other thing. I know you said he played like 37 combinations or something like that in the first game, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, that sounds like a lot, but I don't actually have any idea if that's a lot. I don't know how many most coaches play in the course of a game.
Yeah, and somebody asked me that on the message board too. I went back and looked because I can't compare like to other coaches, but as far as Dennis goes, I think like his first game, the first year he had 28 lineups, and then the next year it was 32. So like it was a little bit higher, but not like a whole lot higher. And the other thing is like you can make a lot of lineup combinations. Like you can, it just takes one player change to have a whole new lineup.
Yeah, like let's say you have your starting five. Let's say you sub 3 of those guys out at the first TV timeout, and then you just make like 3 individual substitutions over the next minute. I mean, that's like 7 lineups in 6 minutes. I mean, it's real easy to get up there pretty quick.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, Freeway Jared points out there was Drew Buggs. So I don't know if you know who Drew Buggs is, but I agree. Drew King greater than Drew Buggs. Oh, okay. There's now a Drew Pine though.
Oh, okay. But I'm a fan. I support all my Drews, really. Like, so I was happy to see Drew Pine do well this weekend.
All right. Well, here's an easy question. We should be able to figure this out. Anthony Price wants to know if Dennis Gates can coach. Yes or no? I mean, like, he didn't do a very good job last year, right? But here's the thing. We're 9% of the way through this season. Like, I'm willing to it's not ideal that Howard and Eastern Washington came back and made you work in the last 6 minutes, but they did win those games. And somebody pointed out, and I remember year one, like there were a couple like 95-88 over like SEMO or something like that. I mean,
Southern
there
Indiana.
Were a couple mid-major team. It's Southern Indiana. That's what it was. There were a couple mid-major teams that came in here and put up a lot of points, and we thought, oh man, this team's going to be bad. And all of a sudden, that team wasn't bad. So college basketball, I feel like we have a hard time adjusting from football mentality to basketball mentality, because football mentality is literally every week your season's on the line, and like there's no let's see if we can figure this out. This is from day one. I mean, other than you play Murray State, okay, but like once you get to week 2 or week 3, it is nonstop. Well, in college basketball, it really isn't that way. Like the reason you schedule these games is so that you can play 37 different lineups and figure out if a guy can help you in the second half or not.
Yeah, I was thinking back to like the first Mississippi Valley State game that they played during Dennis's first year. And like, I think that's the worst team in the country, right? Year to year, they like
legitimately, it's the worst right now. 364 in Ken Pom.
Yeah, like they max out at 3 wins a year, and I think Mizzou was only up 4 against them at halftime, and then ended up blowing them out 83-62. Like that probably should have been a 30-point win. It was a 20-point win.
Hey, if I can interrupt here real quick, Missouri 23rd in the college football playoff rankings. They are 1 spot below LSU. South Carolina jumped in at 21. So Missouri goes up 1 spot behind LSU, 2 spots behind South Carolina. They win this weekend, they'll be in the top 20. All right, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Just wanted to get that in.
No, we got breaking news. That's exciting. It's all good. No, but like, so like the important here is that you're winning the games, right? Because that was kind of the key to that first year, is that you had no bad losses. And last season, when they lost to Jackson State, that's when you kind of knew this season was going to go off the rails, right? Like,
Right.
it's really, really hard to come back from that kind of a loss. And so as long as they're doing that, I don't think there's like a reason to hit the panic meter, right? But it should
But
look
it's
a
fair to
lot
be
better.
concerned.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Like, you shouldn't be up by only 5 or up by only 2 with 5 minutes to play.
Yeah.
So that's
Especially when you earlier were up 16 or whatever the
yes,
number was.
right.
So T. Rise says he doesn't give his guys a chance to get in the flow of a game. Subbing that many players doesn't. Look, I think that's a fair criticism. Like,
Mhm.
I understand guys need rest, especially when you play fast. Guys get tired. But like, just about the time I feel like somebody starts playing well, I'm like, oh, he's not there. And then he comes back 6 minutes later and it's over.
Right. Or Honor Boateng plays the first couple of minutes in the game and then gets yanked, and we don't see him again for the rest of the night.
Yeah.
So
yeah, like, we're not arguing with you guys. We talk about this at games and we don't really get it either.
Right. But again, like, there are a lot of guys he's got to get eyes on in game action, right? And might purposely be trying to put him in those tough spots to test him, like see how he does in that kind of a situation.
So it's the basketball version of what people say every year in the month of September in football. Well, it's just vanilla playbook. They're not using the good stuff yet, right?
Exactly.
And like, usually that doesn't actually turn out to be true. So I get what you're saying about, hey, you've got to put guys in tough situations. I totally agree. However, I felt like it cost them the game. Like, the job is still to win the game, right? And the last 2 games they have, I don't care really if they won by 20 or by 7. I mean, they shouldn't have gotten back within 2, but they did. In the end, the guys he had on the floor won the game. I felt like let's see what this guy can do in this situation kind of cost it. Like, the job is to win the game, and that didn't happen against Memphis.
Yeah, and yeah, I 100% agree with that. Like, I didn't understand not going back to Trent Pierce sooner. I didn't understand playing Caleb Grill as much as he did that specific game when it was pretty clear it was not his night. Yeah, Jacob Cruz got in there. But for these mid-major games, like, I kind of get it. And on top of that, we kind of are already seeing, like, who the top 7 is going to be. You know, like,
so who's the top 7? Run through it real quick.
So it's Ant Robinson for sure, Caleb Grill, Tamar Bates, Mark Mitchell, Josh Gray's going to be in the mix. I don't know how much in the mix, but he'll be in the rotation, right? And then you got Tony Perkins and Aiden Shaw. Like, those are the 7 guys who are playing the most minutes right now. We're going to see them every game. It's those last 3 spots that he's got to figure out. And so that's kind of what he's working.
I would say last 1 or 2, because I prefer 8 or 9, but that's just personal preference. So now there's one I'm gonna push back on a little bit. 15 guys on the roster is too many. Well, first of all, Dennis only wants that to be half his roster. He wants 30. Need to trim it down to 12. This team looks like it could easily go forward without Warwick or Cruz. Here's what I'll say. Literally 27 hours ago, everyone, me included, hand raised, was saying, why is Caleb Grill playing? Like, he's getting way too many. And then he went out, and they don't win without Caleb Grill. So that's the thing about a basketball. There's going to be a game this year where Marquez Warwick, who I want to call Hakeem Warwick every time, even though I know he is not the Syracuse center that blocked Michael Lee's game-tying three-pointer. But there's going to be a game where Marquez Warwick, who's the leading active scorer in college basketball, probably scores 15 or 20 points. Mm-hmm. I thought it was a good sign that Jacob Cruz made a shot last night and didn't, like, I don't think he was great, but he was clearly better than he was in the first couple games, you know, so maybe there'll probably be a night he hits 4 or 5 shots. So, like, you don't need 12 guys in any given game, but you are going to need 12 guys over the course of a season.
Yeah. You know what's funny about that, Gabe? I saw a comment earlier. Somebody said Cruz looks bad on defense. And after the game, Dennis Gates kind of unprompted said, I thought Jacob Cruz was great on defense in the minutes we gave him. I was like, okay. And he had a steal and he had the 3-pointer and he had a rebound too. I went back and watched the second half today and like he was fine. Like he didn't get scored on, but he also like wasn't in the play that much. So I'm not sure like either guy is right because he was out there and didn't get scored on, but like I didn't see anything spectacular from him on defense. He did like I said, pick off a pass, but I don't know about Jacob Cruz, honestly.
Right.
Like he's got to play more, right? Same with Trent Pierce, same with the freshman.
So we've done this question in football, and look, it's a fair question. Do you think coaches are going to have to play guys more just because they're getting paid? So like this is a thing to me. Like, look, Tony Perkins came at a price, right? Did Marquez work? I'm sure he's getting something. How much, I don't know. But point being, yes, you have to win games, but also like, I mean, we went through this with Isaiah Mosley.
Mm-hmm.
You know, was that last year or was that 2 years ago?
2 years ago.
2 years ago. Okay. Like we went through this with Mosley where people were going, hey, are the people that paid him to come here like pissed off he can't get on the floor? And if it was my money, I probably kind of would be, you know? So I don't think coaches are going to risk losing games, but yeah, I do think a part of this now is, well, this kid got $250,000 to come here. I'm going to give him every chance to be good.
Yeah, absolutely. I could absolutely see that being a factor in the mix. That question made me think of when the San Antonio Spurs signed David West and he was like way past his prime. But he was closing games for us. And like there was a conspiracy theory that he signed with the Spurs specifically because we told him he'd be closing games for us when it was clear he shouldn't have been out there. So yeah, I do think some of that might happen, but also like which guys that are getting paid are playing a lot of minutes that they shouldn't be right now.
Right. Yeah.
You know, like you could say Caleb Grill, like you said, 27 hours ago, but then last night he looked pretty good.
And also, I don't have a clue what most of these like. Look, I'm pretty confident Mark Mitchell and Tony Perkins did not come here for free, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Marquez Work was at Northern Kentucky last year. Jacob Cruz was at Tennessee Martin and made his decision after about 18 hours in the portal. So I don't know if again, I think everybody's getting something, but I don't have any idea what those guys are getting.
Yeah, no idea.
If you want the truth. So you got a Mississippi Valley State Delta Devils scouting report for me? I say no.
I don't yet.
Good. I just wanted to make sure. Is Jerry Rice playing? He's the only guy I know that went to school there.
Doesn't look like it.
No, well, no, he was the wide receiver for the San Francisco 49ers.
Oh, sorry.
He's literally the only guy that I know that's ever gone to Valley State.
No, I can confirm Jerry Weiss, the Hall of Fame wide receiver, is not playing basketball this season.
If Jerry Rice was playing for Mississippi Valley State, would he be in the like today, like 58-year-old Jerry Rice? Is he in the starting five? You think? He's good enough? Yeah,
100%. Like he's just got. I don't know how tall he is, but I know he's probably bigger and more athletic than most of the. Yeah, he would probably play power forward for them.
I mean, again, they are legitimately 364th out of 364 teams at Ken Palm. I mean, if they make a big run and get within 2 in the second half, then we officially call it a thing, and it's time to say what the hell's going on, right?
Yeah, I think that's definite. That is definitely a time to hit the panic alarm meter, whatever you want to call it.
At least have your hand hovering over it.
Yeah. Again, though, like the first year they were only down 4 at halftime. And that team still turned out to be okay. So, like, as long as they win, I don't think it's too big of an issue. Because, like, we saw it in Memphis, right? Mizzou can be competitive. They just got to figure out how to do a better job of closing out these games.
It's not being competitive that I have a problem with. I would like them to show me one night that the other team can't be competitive.
Yes.
They're always competitive. That's the problem.
For sure. Yeah.
All right. So I don't know anything from last night that like we haven't talked about or that kind of jumped out. I mean, look, I do think like we're kind of joking about it, but I wrote right after the game. It's good to know that Caleb Grill exists because I was starting to doubt he actually did. Like they told me he did, but I'd never seen it.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I'll throw out there, I know we've talked about it a little bit, but I just continue to be really, really impressed with Anthony Robinson this season. Like he looks like the real deal. He's making shots. He's leading the team in free throws this year. Like he's got 25 free throws already. He's not quite at Phil Pressey levels, getting steals, but he's pretty close. Like he's not too far behind either. So
he might be close in that. He is not a Phil Pressey level passer. I can tell you that.
Yeah, that's fair. But in terms of steals,
two things off that then, and then we'll kind of wrap it up. So, like, how long into the season do we give Tony Perkins to? Because we understand he missed some practice, right?
Yeah.
How far into the season do you go before you just say, yeah, Ant Robinson's this team's point guard?
Yeah.
Or are you already there?
I might already be there. I'm a little concerned that Tony Perkins might fall into kind of a John Tonje situation where, like, is this the guy? Like, is this what they got? And obviously, like, John Tonje had a really good game for Wisconsin in the season opener, right? It was clear he was not at 100% last season. I'm just curious, like, what kind of version of Tony Perkins are they getting right now? And is this the guy or not? So I don't know how long you can wait for him before you start thinking, like, we might want to pull a John Tonje here. But it hasn't been great so far, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it has to be better. I'm willing to give him these next 4 mid-major games and, hey, still working some things out, getting back into shape, whatever it might be. But by the time Cal comes here on December 3rd, I need to know if this is who Tony Perkins is all year, I need to know that by December 3rd.
Yeah, for sure. And like I said, like, I do think even at this level, he's probably still in the top 7, just because, like, I haven't seen anything from Marquez work that tells me he definitely belongs in there. And Tony Perkins at least has a little bit of size to him that helps out. And he's had a couple of moments, just not anything huge, you know? So yeah, I'm with you there. I think, like, in the next couple of weeks, you want to see some kind of breakout from him.
So the other thing you mentioned, Ant's leading the team in free throws. They're averaging 29 trips to the free throw line a game. Greatly improved over last year. It probably won't stay that high all year. I hope it doesn't, because we'll have a lot of really long games. But they're getting to the free throw line a lot more. I would like them to make more of them in the second half. I think that's been a big part of of why teams have come back. Because, like, last night at one point, I think they missed 5 out of 6.
Yeah. Because Caleb had the 3 missed ones in a row, and then Tony Perkins had another one. I think Mark Mitchell
missed a couple.
Yeah, Mitchell went like 1 for 2, something like that. But I mean, that was one of my predictions going into the season. I wasn't completely serious about it. It was just kind of in the rapid fire section. But I said, like, I think this team's going to shoot less than 70% from the free throw line this year. And they're at 73 right now. So I think that there's a lot of guys who have not shown that they can be consistent when they're at the stripe. So that was kind of one of the concerns, one of the reasons that I wrote that in my column. So
I know this is totally unfair, but free throws are kind of like field goals to me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really care what your overall percentage is. I care when the misses come. You know, like, if you go 14 for 16 as a field goal kicker, overall you had a good season. If the 2 misses are with your team down 2 points in the last 2 minutes, you did not have a good season. And like Missouri, okay, the percentage 73 is not bad as a percentage, but man, they've missed some at bad times so far.
Yeah. That kind of happened last year too, if I remember correctly. Like missing front ends of 1-on-1.
They did everything at bad times last year. But yes, I do know that happened. Like there was a game where like Sean East and Nick Honor both missed front ends of 1-on-1s. They ended up losing by like 2, which doesn't narrow it down. I understand.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, that seems like a good place to wrap it up. Again, Missouri plays Jerry Rice University on Thursday night. Drew will be there with full coverage of that one. Missouri football, number 23 in the college football playoff rankings tonight. South Carolina, number 21. Drew, we're going to let you go so I can tell everybody about our insurance agent. That is James Carlton at State Farm Insurance in Webster Groves, Missouri. You can give James or anyone on his team a call at 314-961-4800. You can check him out at carltoninsurance.net. Again, he's my insurance agent. He's Drew's insurance agent. He's taking great care of both of us. I know he wants to be able to work with you guys. He's a huge Mizzou fan, big supporter of Power Mizzou. So if you call him or email him or Facebook message him or whatever, tell him you heard about it on Power Mizzou. He's going to make a donation to Mizzou's NIL fund. He's also going to do his best to take care of you and get you a good deal on insurance. Before you guys leave here, if you're watching live, like, comment, share, subscribe. I will be back on Thursday afternoon talking Mizzou, South Carolina on our opponent preview show. Gerard goes to the other Columbia on Friday. We'll have full coverage on Saturday, and then we'll be here with you post-game 6:30-ish Saturday night. So thanks for hanging out, guys. We will talk to you next time.